I just released a video saying that we need to support Guitar Center or we're going to lose them the way we're losing Sam Ash Music this year. We need to support the new CEO. We needed to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I said that all the trolls and comments section haters, you need to get over yourself. Well, let me support all of that by telling you that there are advantages to buying from Guitar Center. One, first and foremost, you really should try a guitar before you buy it. It's not realistic to always do that anymore, but it's a thing. Guitars are not fungible. 10 guitars come off the line. They're not interchangeable with each other. And there are some brands that get closer to that, at least in overall quality. But even if two guitars are equal in overall quality, they're not necessarily the same in their identity. Let's set aside the internet logic, and I'll just give you real stories of how I know for sure that it is better to play a guitar. Anecdote number one, my Ibanez AEF 100. I found that guitar hanging out in a Guitar Center, just like I advocate for. The beautiful thing about a Guitar Center, you go, you hang out, you play some guitars. I was right out of high school. I was attending college, the local community college at the time, and in between classes, like the Guitar Center was 3 minutes down the road. I would go, show up and play guitars, and it was just a wonderful time. And I found that none of the guitars played in tune, ever. Every single guitar on the wall was out. Like if you tuned that a G chord was in tune, the E chord would be way out, unplayable. So most of the guitars were unplayable to me. It wasn't the guitars, it was me. I was like a band kid, classical background playing wind instruments. And in wind instruments, your embouchure, you use your mouth to intonate every note as perfectly as you can with the rest of the sounds that the ensemble is making. So nobody told me what equal temperament was. A piano, you can't control the intonation of the notes. So a piano is basically tunes where nothing is in tune. But nothing's so far out of tune to be a problem. And that's what equal temperament tuning is. And guitars are the same way. Nobody told me that. To this day, I just use a tuner now. I can't untrain my ear. So I just use a tuner and trust the tuner when I tune, because if I tune the ear, I will not get equal temperament. Something will be in tune perfectly and everything else will be out of tune, and I will hate my life because of the guitar disease, as I used to call it. But one day, there was a guitar that played in tune. It was an AEF 100, an Ibanez, right? I had no connection to Ibanez as a brand. Like I wouldn't have thought, oh, I want an Ibanez. Saw a shiny looking guitar, pick it up, try it, and it just was there. It was the magic. But I'm just playing it and loving it and having a good time. And this kid was walking around the acoustic room with his dad. And I'm talking to people. I love to talk to people. I'm like, hey, what are you looking for? This and that. He was looking for his first guitar. And his dad was helping him. His dad was going to buy it for him. And he's like, maybe this, maybe that. I said, you know what? You know what guitar I would buy in this whole room? I would buy this one. And I basically demoed the guitar for him. I was like, look at this, boom. And I explained the intonation thing. Like all these other guitars, they're not going to play in tune. This one though, look at that. I had such a great time bonding with this kid and his dad and showing him this awesome guitar that I had no intention of buying. I wasn't in the market for a guitar. But the problem is, before the week was over, I was in the market for a new guitar. Total side story. There was a girl. She was a girl I had dated in high school. I had the worst one that got away syndrome about this girl. I found her on the internet. Like she moved away after high school and she was all the way down in Florida. I'm in South Jersey. She's working at Disney in Orlando, and she invites me to come and visit her for her birthday. All right, I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna win this girl. I'm gonna get the girl. Yeah, it's like super romantic, like all the best intentions, right? But I needed a better guitar because, like I told you, my guitar had the guitar disease. It didn't play in tune. It did. If I had just used a tuner instead of trying to tune by ear, that guitar would have been fine. But I didn't know that, so I needed to go get that guitar that I found, that one guitar in the whole world that played in tune. Go in there, march in there with my credit card, because I'm broke, 19 years old. I'm gonna buy this guitar. And I look around, where is that thing? And it was gone. So I go over to the manager, his name was Todd. I say, Todd, what happened to that orange Ibanez you guys had? Actually, it wasn't orange, it was red. It looks orange now because of how, this is a 20-year-old guitar now. Where's that red Ibanez? Oh, that one you were playing for a couple hours? Oh, remember that kid? He bought it. I sold my own guitar. I sold him on that guitar and he bought it. And then I couldn't buy it and it's gone. And it's the only guitar in the whole world that played in tune, and I talked this other kid into buying it. And now I can't take the guitar down to Florida and get the girl. I ruined everything. I really felt like I ruined my whole life I really felt it's so funny. The stuff that you think is so important when you're 19 years old. So I'm just moping around the Guitar Center, just moping around, nearly crying. So the drum guy, the guy back then, there was like a drum guy, pro audio guy, and there was a guitar guy. So the drum guy who was like a local like gigging musician, like everybody kind of knew him. His name was Jim. Jim sees me and he's like, "What's wrong, man?" Like, I tell him the story, you know, ruined it all, not gonna get the girl now. And he says, "Why didn't Todd just look up on the computer and find you one?" "Find me one? On the computer?" "Yeah, man, let me come over here, let me look for you." Looks on his computer. "Oh, they got one in Cherry Hill, man, I can get it here." I'm like, "Yeah, do it, man." And it came in, and it's like, "Oh, another one, yes, I can go get the girl." And I play it, and it didn't play in tune. It wasn't like the one I played at all. And I was angry because now not only was I not going to get the girl, but I spent all this money on this guitar that doesn't work. I hated it. I hated everything. And I was so upset. And then Todd was like, "Hey man, why don't we set it up for you?" So they tried to set it up for me. I don't know, maybe that made it a little better, but it wasn't. It really wasn't. I didn't take the guitar with me. I didn't play for the girl. I blew it with the girl anyway. Actually, like that, every version of history was going to lead to me blowing it with that girl. She was not the same girl that I knew in high school anyway. So thank God it didn't work out with the girl. Thank God that I didn't marry her or anyone else, and I married my wife, who is awesome, and I love her. They were both AEF 100s, right? They were both on clearance at Guitar Center, 50 miles away from each other, but they were not the same guitar. The story has a happy ending because I found the guy like 10 years later, and he got the thing to play in tune, and I'm very happy about that. I do my own guitar work now. The moral of the story is that if you sit down and play a guitar, and that guitar has the magic, you better pull the trigger on it if you're in the market for a guitar. Like, don't wait. Don't miss that guitar and think that you're gonna get one like it. Here's another story at Guitar Center about playing a guitar and playing it in person, being all the difference. That is a Greg Bennett by Samick. Samick is a company that they're like one of the big three. So World, Samick, and Cort make all these guitars that these other brands import from overseas. PRS and Epiphone and Fender and whatever. Most of those guitars are made by one of those three companies. And Samick was a big one. And Samick had their own house brand though. It was called Greg Bennett by Samick. And they got this Greg Bennett guy who I guess had some industry experience designing guitars. And he designed guitars that like theoretically were supposed to be great. Now I had never heard of Greg Bennett by Samick and didn't want to know, didn't care. But I had seen the guitar. Let me tell you why I looked at this guitar. I never would have looked at it because of the Samick name. I never would have looked at it. I wasn't Googling Greg Bennett by Samick. I would have never even heard of this guitar, and I would have never looked at it twice on the wall at Guitar Center, except I had been getting into repairing guitars. And when you're like researching repairing guitars, you also kind of get some stuff in your YouTube feed about people building guitars. And so I started to notice that the guys who are building guitars, the little things that they care about are things that I might not care about, like binding. I don't care about binding, but you know what? The builder does. And so I noticed this guitar is like an overseas guitar. It's all solid wood. So East Indian rosewood, Sitka spruce top, but it was the binding that made me look at it really close. That is a flame maple binding. Flame maple binding. And at the time, the guitar was like on sale for $700, $600 or something. It was like $800 MSRP. Flame maple binding on an $800 import guitar. They don't put flame maple binding on Martins. They put plastic binding on a $3,000 Martin. That really got my attention. Not because of reading it on a spec sheet, right? This never would have happened online. This only would have happened in a store. I saw flame maple binding. I saw braces on the sides, which told me that it was a solid, all solid wood. I saw beautiful abalone on a budget guitar. And I thought, what's that? Then I played it. And when I played it, I could feel the edges of the fretboard are rolled. It felt so comfortable. The rosewood is nice and dark, and it sounds beautiful. And I put it back on the wall because I wasn't in the market for a guitar. One day, I went back in the Guitar Center because I go hang out at the Guitar Center. It was on clearance. There was a different color, a little yellow tag on that guitar, and it said $274. I'll be in the market for a guitar. To get that good of a guitar for $274, yes, please and thank you. I would have missed it if I didn't hang out in the Guitar Center, and I would have never even known how good Greg Bennett by Samick Guitars are if I didn't see that thing in the Guitar Center. And now I check up, like I look up for like, they have electric guitars too, so like that whole brand is on my radar because of this guitar. But that would have never happened online. Here's the problem with online only. It creates winner-take-all effects. You only hear about the brands that put themselves out there the most. So you only hear about the most kind of spend-heavy brands as far as their public relations, or you hear about the cheapest brands that like everyone, you know, oh, the cheapest guitar on Amazon thing. You don't hear about any of this good stuff that's in the middle because it's not on any of the extremes to get attention online. You just miss stuff that you would have seen if you were there, like looking at stuff on the wall. Now you can order online from Guitar Center, and the idea that they ship bad product is way overblown, way overblown. They might ship you something that's been on the wall, but you're probably gonna get something new in box. I don't think that there's probability either way. Case in point would be my Epiphone Casino. Now that was a gift from a dear friend who is, you know, my big client. He got one for each of us because he had watched that Get Back thing about the Beatles, and he was all excited. He loves the Beatles. That thing came new in box from Guitar Center. Nobody had ever touched it. It was as new as if I'd gotten it from Sweetwater or anywhere else. Nothing wrong with it. It's great. You can't just assume that the stuff that people say on the internet is as true as they make it sound, right? Because they're sensationalists. They're oh, I bought, you know, you hear a couple horror stories and you think it's all like that, and it's just not true. And even if you do have a problem, they have 45-day returns. I could have just walked that into the Guitar Center if there was a problem, laid it on their counter, and told them to refund my friend his money back or send me another one. There were these 3 Les Pauls a couple years ago at my Guitar Center. They were like almost the same guitar, but the finish just had a little bit of a different hue. They were Les Paul standards. Some guy had ordered a Les Paul, didn't quite like the color, brought it in, laid it on the counter, sent me another. Brought that one in when it came, laid it on, sent me another. Did it 3 times. He kept the 4th one, I guess. No questions asked, they just do it. You know, I guess that's our second benefit, is that 45-day return policy. I'm more likely to pull the trigger with Guitar Center than I am with anyone else. If I'm thinking about a purchase, I'm on the fence. I'm probably gonna stay on the fence with Sweetwater. I'm probably gonna stay on the fence with Amazon. I'm gonna stay on the fence with Reverb. If they have the thing at the price at Guitar Center, I'm gonna pull the trigger. There's no risk, I'll just bring it back if it's a mistake. I love that return policy, love it. Even used stuff, you can look for Guitar Center's online used stuff and the 45-day return window still applies. I bought my HX Stomp from Guitar Center online. I bought my HX Effects from Guitar Center online. Got great deals on both. The shipping was negligible, and I could have returned it if there was any problem at all. In fact, my best story about Guitar Center's return policy, that I had the modelers and stuff, and I really wanted something to hear them. I was tired of using headphones. What I had been doing is using the receive of this amp. This is a TubeWorks RT2100. It's got a tube preamp, but it's got a solid state power amp. At the time, I thought I wanted something better than that, so I decided I'm just gonna get like a little wedge monitor. So I got a custom 50-watt wedge monitor, ordered it online, Guitar Center, had it shipped to store. I go open the box, bring it in here, sit it in this room, and I plug in my HX Stomp to it, and I try to play. That thing went right back in the box, right back to Guitar Center. Then I got a Headrush FR speaker, full range flat response speaker. Now this is supposed to be the thing, right? The thing for using with modelers, and it was more expensive. I think it was like 250 bucks. I get that thing here, and it didn't sound bad. It did. It sounded like I could get it to sound good if I wrestle the crap out of it. And I didn't want to wrestle the crap out of it. I wanted to plug it in, I want to plug my guitar in, I want to do the thing, I want to get the feeling, and I don't want to have to sit there and like wrestle this speaker to the ground to get it to sound the way I want. So that thing got packed up, put right back to the Guitar Center, right there on the thing. And I say to the guy, my buddy Ben in there, I said, hey man, I have an idea. that maybe a better PA speaker might work for me instead of one of these like FRFR or like one of these products that are like niche. Can I just bring my HX Stomp in and plug them in to all your PA speakers and see if there's one that I like? It's like, yeah, definitely, bro. Come on in. So I bring the HX Stomp in and we plugged it into all the PA speakers. There was like 2 that were in my price range and 1 that was kind of out of my price range. Guess what? You can't do that on Sweetwater. You can't do that on Amazon. Go in there and your guy is sitting there, you together are just plugging stuff into stuff until you find the right thing. I'm sitting there and I'm not feeling it. I'm not like, and we, we do this a lot. He's trying to talk me into this other speaker. It's a little more expensive. And we also tried a QSC K12, way out of my price range. I think the sticker said $800. $800. Whew. Man, I was not ready to spend $800. But I said, let's try it just as a control, just to see, just so we can compare it to the others. We play all this stuff with all these speakers, and I look at him and I say, Ben, this one's not giving me the feeling. And he says, is there one that is giving you the feeling? The K12 too. So he's like, oh yeah, you like that one? I was like, I do like it. It's giving me the feeling. I'm trying to get my head around this price, $800. I mean, even now. And I look next to it at the K12-8, a smaller QSC. This was the big one, and the smaller one said it was $850. Like, why is the big one $800 and the small one $850? Doesn't make any sense. The bigger one has a 12-inch speaker, which was like a requirement for me. So he looks into it, and it turns out they had just hiked all the prices on the QSC stuff, and they forgot to change the tag on that K12. So I said, all right, you're gonna give me the old price, right? Because the new price was like $1050. It was like over $1,000. And he's like, well, I gotta go ask. He goes, talks to the manager, says, yeah, we could do it. Done. Box it up. So I basically bought the speaker brand spanking new for what I could have sold it used like the next day. And that's if I waited longer than the 45 days return period. So this was totally risk-free. All of that whole thing, I ended up with the perfect monitor for any modeler. It is a QSC K12-2 that I wouldn't have even known that was the right one if I didn't do that thing with my guy at my Guitar Center. And after 3 returns, that was like the 3rd in a string of products that I bought and returned and said, nope, take it back. I just drove over there. I didn't have to do shipping labels. I didn't have to pay for return shipping like at Sweetwater. Are you seeing how awesome this is? Guitar Center is still awesome. You think just because Guitar Center is like nothing compared to what it used to be, that it's not awesome. No, it's still awesome. It was way more awesome, but it's still awesome. Here's the 3rd benefit. So we talked about playing stuff in person. We talked about the 45-day return window. Now let's talk about the fact that you never know what you're gonna see in there, especially with the used gear. I heard about these really cheap tube amps that people on the internet were talking about. A company called Monoprice, which makes cheap Chinese stuff, got into the amp business. They're just like, we're gonna make tube amps. And so they made these tube amps. I don't even remember what I had heard about them. All I know is that I'm not buying stuff from Monoprice. I'm not paying them hundreds of dollars for them to ship it to me and for me to find out if this Chinese thing is good or not. I'm not interested in that. I'm not buying it from their Amazon store, none of that. Pass, right? Even though I'm a little curious. But I walked past this little white amp and I knew what it was. It was this thing, Monoprice Stage Right 15. It's something like an AC 15, but not quite, having studied the circuit is kind of, I think that's fair enough to say. It was sitting there on the floor. There's no risk. I can plug, hey, can I plug this in and play it? So I plug it in and I play it and I went through the whole rotation of like the little riffs that I would do to test something right there in the Guitar Center. I mean, I played it enough to know, whoa, this is the thing. I'm getting the feeling. I'm getting the feeling deep in my tummy, okay? And it was used for $174. New, they were, I think, $300, and you could find them on sale for $200 sometimes. I couldn't buy the parts for $174. Like, I literally could just sell the tubes on eBay and get my $174 back. Yeah, dude, I'll buy it. I'm just gonna buy it. Also, I don't even have to decide. When you buy something at Guitar Center, you're not even deciding to buy it. You're just deciding to think about not returning it. So I take it home. The thing is awesome. If you own a nice amp, it's not gonna seem so awesome. Like it's fine. If you don't have a nice amp, like if you own an AC-15 and you A/B test them, then you're gonna notice that AC-15 sounds sweeter when you get to the breakup. But if you don't have anything to compare it to, like I actually have a really nice Gibson Skylark right there, and I have other stuff, but I didn't have anything that was in that vein. So I didn't have anything that was gonna make this sound bad by comparison. And it's a great, useful amp that I never would have tried if Guitar Center didn't have one used. And I got a great deal on it because Guitar Center's got this like Amazon brand, like mono price. This isn't their wheelhouse, like $174, take it. This is awesome. And I could have returned it. Here's the next part of that story. I was so impressed with this amp, I did a little research into what else Monoprice might be offering, and they made another combo amp. That is a Monoprice Stage Right 5. And I bought that on Amazon because I think they're like $200 now, or $150 or $180, but sometimes they'll like blow them out at $100. So I was, just checking up on them now and then, and I saw it, boom, $99, done. Same thing, I could sell the tubes and the speaker. These things have Celestion speakers in them. I could sell the tubes and the speaker and get my money back, there's no risk. But I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have known that I could take a chance on this amp if I hadn't bumped into this amp at the Guitar Center. You see how valuable the Guitar Center is? Here's another never know what you're gonna find thing. I, at one point, had zero interest in Les Pauls, even though I really like Jimmy Page. Like, I thought I would have been a Les Paul guy. But every time I looked into maybe what kind of a Les Paul would I want to buy, they all look the same to me. It's just like, it looks like there's no right answer. They're just all some kind of sunburst thing with some kind of pickups that I can't really even tell how they're different. And some of them are $3,000 and some of them are $2,000. I just didn't want anything to do with any of the way Gibson was doing their lineup. It just pass. But then one day, I saw this beautiful blue one. I'd never seen a blue Les Paul. It's lovely, isn't it? I was interested because of the color and because it looked different from all the other Les Pauls that I had ever seen, but also it had a brass nut, and that was really, really interesting to me. That's actually titanium that Gibson sends people when their brass one goes bad, but this is a 0 fret, and it was originally brass, and it was just so different, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I gotta try this. So I get it down, and I play it, and it was the thing. It gave me the feeling. It gave me the feeling deep in my tummy. I knew that this is like, if I wanted a Les Paul, this is what I would want it to sound like. But I wasn't really sure that that was like a special thing. Like, maybe I would get the feeling from any of them. I hadn't really played any of the Les Pauls off the wall. So I went and I grabbed a brand new Les Paul. It was a 2021 Les Paul Standard. This is a 2015. And I plugged that in and played it. The new one sounded like trash. It was horrible. Immediately I wanted to just stop playing it. Why did this one sound awesome and the other one sounded like garbage? And so now I'm like super curious. So I'm sitting there on my phone trying to figure out what's different about this. And I found out that the 2015 Les Paul Studio, they did a special release for this guy. That is Les Paul, the man. It was his centennial birthday. If he was still alive, 2015 would have been his 100th year. And so they upgraded everything. They upgraded the hardware, the bridge, they upgraded the electronics, they upgraded the pickups. Those are classic 58s. I didn't know what classic 58s were before I went in there, but I did the research after I heard them. And it was some other pickups in the new model. It was like 480T or something. I don't know. They sounded like crap to me. All these benefits. Why didn't they keep doing that? I'll tell you why. In 2015, they made all these changes and they did another change. They put those stupid robo-tuners on the back of the headstock. And y'all came out with torches and pitchforks and we're gonna burn down the barns if they didn't change it back. So Gibson in 2016 was like, change everything back. Take back all of those upgrades. Don't ever do that again. Give them the same crap we gave them in 2014 because that's what they want. Because of one of the changes was I don't want a robo-tuner. That one doesn't have a robo-tuner. It's one of two limited editions that it was like a Guitar Center special where they had like vintage style tuners instead of the robo-tuner. This thing was special and I knew it because I played it, and I played it because I saw it. I didn't hesitate. I knew that if I pass on this guitar, someone's gonna buy it, and it's the only Les Paul I wanted. You just cannot discount the serendipity of it, of walking into the guitar shop, if you have one, and seeing something that you weren't expecting to see. I have one more benefit for you for a Guitar Center. Fourth benefit, trade-ins. You could take your stuff there and give that to them and get your stuff, the new stuff. They'll even buy your stuff. Guitar Center's not the best place to take your gear to sell it because they need to make a margin on it. Although So you're not going to get the money you could get. It is a lot easier to just set it on the counter. But if you want to trade stuff in, they work with you. One time I was in the Guitar Center and I walked by a little baby blue amp that looked like a little Fender Princeton. And that's why I was like curious. It was a Fender Super Champ X2. I didn't know anything about it, but it was a tube amp, and it obviously had like some modeling in the front end. It was like a tube amp power section with like modeling for the preamp section. Played it, sounded great, Fender amp. I was into amp circuits at the time, and I thought, you know what, even if I don't love the amp long term, I could just use the chassis and the cabinet and just basically build my own amp, like make myself a Princeton. I have a Princeton story. I didn't buy a Princeton once, and I regret it. So I was gonna build myself a Princeton with this amp's shell as the starting point, which would be awesome, way better than starting from scratch. And in the meantime, I have a tube amp, a Fender, you know. So I get the amp home and found out that most of the things it did, you couldn't do anymore because they didn't support the software and that whole mess. But I tell you all that to say this: when this thing had a clearance on it, I wasn't in a position to just drop some money on a guitar, but I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity. So I had just spent almost exactly the same money on this Fender X2. I went to my buddy and I said, hey man, remember that Fender Super Champ I bought? Could I just trade that for this? I said, yeah, sure. I was like right outside of the return window. So I was thinking I could just return that and buy this, but I was outside of the return window. And so I just talked to my boy and he's like, yeah, go ahead. Boom. Got to play that amp for a while and then traded it for this, which I get more value out of. Well, that wouldn't have been the case if I had built myself the Princeton, but maybe I will one day. So those are just 4 of the benefits of buying from Guitar Center. You play the guitar first, 45-day return window, no questions asked. You don't know what you're gonna find, and the trade-ins. Now, action time. Go out in the world and make music that makes people happy.